Okay, let's go ahead and begin now. I want to introduce myself, make sure everyone knows who I am. I'm Brian Anderson, and I work in the sales and marketing area of Netaphor software. And today, what I'm going to present to you is the SiteAudit Virtual Technician. The Virtual Technician has been a capability Netaphor has been working on for a number of years. We're now at a point where we can offer it to partners. And so today's agenda is really to introduce you to what the capabilities are of the virtual technician. And as the name suggests, it is as the slogan says, it's like having a technician on site or on premise without the cost of one. And so that's really the value proposition that we're proposing today. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go through, what the features and benefits are. We'll talk about security, which is real important. Everyone's at least has some awareness of security and has some sensitivity to it. So we'll talk about how to present it so that security is not an issue. We have a partner program for you for Virtual Technician. So if you're a partner, and I'm assuming you are, then you have an opportunity to participate in that program. And I'll tell you the details on that. And then finally, we'll go through a demonstration. It'll show you how the features look and how you operate SiteAudit Virtual Technicians. Okay, let's begin here. Before I actually get into the virtual technician, I want to make clear that today, if you're using SiteAudit hosted, that there are some remote data collecting agent capabilities or DCA capabilities that you may or may not be aware of. And I'm just going to touch on those real quickly. So if you've got a SiteAudit hosted viewer, so hosted administrator viewer, and most of you who are using SiteAudit hosted do have that, then you have the capability to restart the monitoring at a customer site. And what that would accomplish is if the monitoring is currently running and you restart it, what that would allow you to do is it would do a new discovery of the fleet, and you'd pick up new devices that perhaps were just added to the fleet, and you'd see those right away. So that's a capability you have today that is of a remote administrative nature. There's also a second capability that's available, and that is you can be notified if the data collecting agent or DCA has stopped. And that's very important because a lot of partners find that they don't have any visibility into what the DCA is doing. So having that notification helps them take the next step of restarting it. So those two capabilities are there today. And I won't talking more about that, except at the end where I'll show you how you would set up that notification. Okay. So let's go on to the virtual technician. Before we start, I want to give you just a quick view of what that looks like. And I'm going to start it here. And so the virtual technician, as you may guess, is a capability that you see through the SiteAudit viewer. So what I'm going to do right now is just give you just a quick look at what it can do, and then we'll go into some specifics back to the presentation. So I'm going to pick a device, and let's say what I want to do is I want to see if that device is online. And where I'm located is I'm a Netaphor partner, and the device I'm concerned about is located in some other area of the country, and I'm using hosted. And what I want to do is I see this Lexmark device. What I can do is I can right-click on that, and because I've got the virtual technician license, I can go in and take a remote look at that device. So once I click on that, it brings up this screen, and I can do several things. One is I can ping that device, and I can see that device is online, which is good. Secondly, which is really what I'm after, this is just an artifact. What I'm really interested in is I want to go to that device, and I want to make a slight security change. And again, there are some security prerequisites here we'll talk about towards the end of the presentation. But just go through this and understand what the capabilities are I'm showing you. So I'm looking at a remote device at a customer site, and this is a Lexmark. I can see it's a Lexmark MX410. And so I'm going to go to Settings here, and I'm looking at the web page of that device, and I go to Network Ports. And what I want to do with this device is I want to go in and I want to change the community string. I want to make the security on this device, I want to make it stronger. So I might give it a different name, like I might give it a name like Lexmark MX410, or I might give it a specific password or community string that has different characters that would make it stronger and less likely to be hacked. So this is just a quick example of what you can do with remote device diagnostics. Just wanted to introduce that to you, and I'll come back and do another demonstration towards the end of the presentation. So that gives you a sense of what Virtual Technician can do at the device level. So now let's go through the presentation and find out a few more details. So by remote service, what we mean is that the partner, Netaphor partner, is in one location, and they're communicating to a device that's at the customer site through the internet or the cloud. That's the basic paradigm. The value proposition is, by using Virtual Technician, is that there's cost savings to the partner. And that really is in the sense that you don't have to go to the customer site. You can do whatever you need to do. You can detect the problem. You can do a first-level diagnostic, if you will, remotely. And that saves the cost of setting up a visit, driving there, and all the costs involved with that. So that's a cost savings. The second thing is that once an issue is detected, then you can respond to it. You don't have to wait to go to the customer site to do it. So that improves your response time, and that's where the service performance increases. So basically, without Virtual Technician, there's more time to resolve an issue. With Virtual Technician, there's less time to resolve an issue, and therefore there's the cost savings. Also, you can respond quicker, which makes the service performance go up, and there's less customer intervention that's required, so less hassle for them. So that's the main value proposition of Virtual Technician. And I want to also just make clear to you is that this works on all makes and models. So regardless if it's a Canon device or a Konica Minolta device or HP device, you should be able to use a Virtual Technician on it, as long as it's a network device. So let's talk about some specific capabilities. So there's a remote DCA and device diagnostics. And what I just showed you was the device diagnostics part. I'll show you in a minute what the DCA diagnostics are. But there are several common things between the DCA and the device. And both is that you can verify that things are running. You can verify that the device is online. You can verify the DCA is running. You can make configuration changes, both the DCA and the device. And provide some caution here in that you would not want to necessarily make DCA changes without first consulting with the Netaphor support team. And you should work in conjunction with anything that's related to changing collection intervals, debug settings, and those kind of things. So just keep that in mind. We'll talk a bit more about that later. Then you can also get statistics. So you can get statistics on how the DCA is performing. You can see what the device configuration is. So there's a lot you can do remotely there. In addition, for the device itself, you can run a MIB-walk. So if the case is that you need to have something supported that's not supported presently in SiteAudit, you might want to run a MIB-walk, and that might be at the request of Netaphor to do that. And then in the future, we'll be adding the capability to update firmware versions, and all this again is done remotely. So that's the basic overview of the capabilities. Now let's look at some more specifics here. So this is what it looks like from the viewer. If you go to the diagnostics menu and you've got a virtual technician license, what will be added is if you go down to the down towards the bottom of that menu, you'll see virtual technician. And once you select that, it gives you a choice of either going to the DCA or going to the device you've selected. Okay, so you can do that from the menu, or what you can do if you're just interested in going to the device, you can pick a device, right-click on it, and then it'll open up that same set of menu items, details, cost configuration, etc. But there's a new item called Remote Device Diagnostics, and you can select that, and that'll bring up what next steps you want to do. There's two ways to get to the device through the menu. You can also just get to the DCA through the menu by going through diagnostics. Now let's talk a little bit more about the DCA capabilities. So there's four basic things you can do with the DCA. One is that you're looking at a customer and you want to check how the DCA is performing. You can see what the DCA is running on. You can see what platform it's running on. You can check its performance statistics. You can look at the monitoring settings. If there's an issue with, say, email or any other issue, you can set the debug log on. Those things obviously you'd want to consult with our support team before you do those. And then you can also download event log files. The reason why this is important is today, and in most cases where you've got a remote DCA running, you physically have to go to the site or ask the customer for this information. And now with the virtual technician, you can do this all remotely. So again, it saves you that time and effort of having to go to the customer to do these items. So the menu opens up when you get to the DCA diagnostics. There's a configuration tab, and that'll show you what the DCA is configured, how it's running. It'll tell you what OS, what the version of SiteAudit you're running, and the whole other set of configuration items that you can look at. It'll also give you the status of what you're doing there. It'll tell you how many devices you've discovered, how many are networked, how many are being monitored. And this is typically used for looking at, say, performance, evaluating performance. And again, I want to emphasize this. This is all type of statistics. It may not mean specifically to the MPS provider, but it would be part of the troubleshooting process you would work with our support team to perform. But again, you can do this remotely. And then thirdly, you could go in remotely and change the monitoring intervals. So one interval that might be of interest is if you're in a smaller environment and you want to restart, or you want to start discovery on a more frequent interval instead of every 7 days, then that could be changed to 1 or 2 days depending on the requirement. So you can go in and change the monitoring cycles as well. Then lastly, you can download event logs, and those things are used in the support process to troubleshoot any issue that you might have. So that's the DCA part of Virtual Technician. Now let's look at the remote device Diagnostics. So here there are three basic capabilities today, and then a fourth will be added in the future. So what you can do is you can ping a device remotely, which might be something you do on a first level of troubleshooting. You want to make sure the device is online and can get information. You can configure the device, as I showed you earlier. You can make some configuration changes. Then lastly, you can also do a MIB walk. So you can go and browse the device MIB, collect that, and send it on to Netaphor support for evaluation and adding feature in the future release. And then the update of the firmware is something we're working on, and that'll be rolled out when it's obviously ready. So what this looks like is that there's a remote device diagnostics page. You can hit the ping, which we showed you. The fetch will open up a web page, and then from there you can go on and make whatever analysis you need to do or steps to the device. So let's talk about security, because that's going to be a question that may come up when you're working with your customers. So the way we're rolling out Virtual Technician is we're rolling it out to select partners, and there's some training that we require that you go through before you start using Virtual Technician. And one of the components of the training is to talk about security, and what I'll give you right now is sort of a high-level understanding of that. So the way that the Virtual Technician works is it works from the viewer, the implementation of the SiteAudit viewer through the SiteAudit hosted server to the device. And there's really nothing that's different doing Virtual Technician than is already being done with the data collecting, the DCA. So it uses, communication uses the same HTTPS TLS version 1.2 protocol as the DCA uses in order to collect data and put it in the hosted database. So that's already been done, and so Virtual Technician just uses that same protocol in order to look at the device. And the customer has already agreed to this. So that may be a consideration, but I think once you explain that it's no different than what the DCA is currently doing, that should be acceptable. The second thing is that access to the device. So you go to a device, the device has capability of having a password, which is controlled by the customer through the vendor or the manufacturer partner. And any device can have a password, so that they can control access to the device through a password. They can give you access to it or not. So that's up to the end user to decide. So that's basically the security considerations. It's nothing different than what the DCA is doing currently, and what you're probably doing on site anyway by talking to a device. So I think these are sort of minimal issues that can be overcome with a short conversation with your customer. That's security. Now let's look at the requirements. What do you need in order to run the Virtual Technician? Well, you need to have at least be running version 6.8, and of course it'll be Virtual Technician will be offered in later versions as well. You need to have a Virtual Technician license, which is part of can be part of your hosted viewer license. That can be added. You need to have Chrome. So the Virtual Technician uses the Chrome browser in order to communicate. You need to have a security role of what in SiteAudit we call a tenant administrator. So there's different levels of access that is called functional security, and you can grant someone a limited access, which is called a reviewer status, and there's more access at a manager level. The next one is called tenant administrator, and this allows more access. And when you get a connection key file, which is currently being used, then you'll have a tenant administrator right to see a device. And then lastly, I'm stuck here. Go here, sorry. The platform. So the platform running the DCA, and this is the same for running SiteAudit version 6.8 or later, needs to be at least Windows 8.1 or Windows Server 2012 R2. If they're running on Windows 7, then it's not possible for a virtual technician to work. Okay, so those are the basic requirements. Here's the partner program. So the partner program is that, one, you need to be using SiteAudit hosted. So you need to be SiteAudit hosted partner. We're offering a 3-month trial. So you'll get a license, some training, be able to start working with virtual technician, and then we'll come back and get some feedback along the way, make sure that you feel comfortable using it, how you roll it out to your customers. We can work on that with you as well, and then you can go off and use it full time. And so it'll be a licensed product. There will be a charge after the trial period, but that hasn't been determined yet. So that's the program, and in order to get that started, you just need to contact this guy. If you send an email to me, then I'll work out the details in how to begin your trial period. I'm going to go back just real quickly, and we begun the webinar. We talked about that currently you have the capability to be notified when a DCA has stopped. This is already in there. This is not part of Virtual Technician. It's just part of Hosted today. And the way you do that simply is when you set up the customer, there's a menu item called company information. If you fill in the contact details with a name, phone number, and what's required is an email address, then when the DCA is stopped, those person in the email list will be notified that it's stopped and for whatever period it's been stopped for. So that's available today, and I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that can be implemented without Virtual Technician. It can be done today. Okay. All right, so let's take another look at a demonstration of Virtual Technician. So I'm going to bring up my site here. And what we looked at before is we looked at making a change to a setting of a device. And so just a couple quick things before I go into the device. So here's the diagnostics. Here's a virtual technician. Here's how I'd access the DCA or the device diagnostics for whatever I've selected. I can also select the device by just going to the device. So in this case, I'm going to look at a Sharp device and right-clicking on it, and then going to Remote Device Diagnostics. And I can see that I can ping that device. Okay, so this device is someplace out in the world, and I can ping it. I know it's online. I can then go and it's an artifact. It won't be in your release. And I can go and take a look at that device. And let's say in this case I'm looking at a Sharp. It's a DX2500N, and it's bringing up the web page. And in this case, what I'd like to do is I'd like to check the device configuration if I can. Let's see. So I might go to sure everything comes in. So I'm going to look at the status of this device. And what I can see is what's this device configured for. So here I can see that this Sharp device has a 500 sheet paper drawer, I can see what memory is there. I can see that the hard drive has not been installed. If I had to and wanted to check the toner levels, I could see this in SiteAudit as well. But if for some reason I wanted to verify that, I could certainly do that through Virtual Technician as well. So that's another example of how you might use Virtual Technician. And now let's take a look at another case here where I want to look at, this case I'm looking at a Canon device. And here I want to make sure again that I can ping it. And in this case, I think this case there may be a password on the device. So for you as a remote technician, well, this actually just has one. Yeah, it does. So if I wanted to get into system mode, then I would need that information. Okay, so that protects the device. But what I want to do here is I want to do a MIB walk. So I've selected a device. I just hit Browse, and I'm going to give it the file a name, Canon IR 2530, I think what it was. And it says here it's retrieving the MIB walk. So once it's completed the MIB walk, then it'll put it on, or download it to my local system here. And there I can take a look at it and send it on to Netaphor for processing. Okay. So that's the remote MIB walk. Now let's do one last thing. Let's take a look at the DCA itself. So this DCA I can access through Diagnostics, going to Virtual Technician, and then over to the DCA Diagnostics. And here's that view we looked at earlier, where I could see, what the machine is it's running. So I can see this is a Microsoft NT10, and 10 is actually you can see how Microsoft versions are by here. So these are the Windows version. Anything with a 10 is a Windows 10 2019, 2016. Windows 8.1 is a 6.8 or less. So that's a 10, so that's probably a Windows 10 machine. This is the version of SiteAudit that's running. These are some configurations that are set up, and again, this may not mean a lot to you, but they would to the support team at Netaphor. Here we can look at the status of the DCA. Here's the number of devices that are being monitored. These are the number that are networked. Here I can see, again, some things in terms of performance. But again, this would be more to the support team. This is the area I wanted to show you. Here's where I could make a change to the monitoring. So the one that would probably be most interest to you, if I want to change the monitoring cycle from say 7 days to 1 day or some other day, I could make that change here. I could set the auto update, although that's again something you want to consult with support team on. Then I could download the event logs here as well, simply that way. Okay. So that's the Virtual Technician, and that's how it works. I think the next step, if you're interested, is please send me a note, say that you're interested in trying it out. We'll get you set up on a short training, get a license for you, and you can begin to use the Virtual Technician. Thanks so much for your time today. Are there any questions? Let me just check that, and then if not, then we'll go on here. Yes, one question: is the hosted SiteAudit truly remote? Yes. Let's see. Is S&P version 3 supported? As it is. I don't see a lot of other questions here. If you do have follow-up questions and they haven't been answered, then just send an email to me or the support team at netaphor.com, and we'll get back to you with an answer. Thanks again for your time today.